Renewed Mind Revolution Podcast. A place that empowers, encourages, and informs. We're breaking through, we're rising strong. A brand new mindset where we belong. Empowered voices, hearts aligned. Encouraging truth, renewed in mind. It's the revolution. Let your spirit soar. We're here to lift you, give you so much more. Encourage and power, informed with love. A renewed mind journey.
Welcome to Renewed Mind Revolution Podcast with your host, Michelle Cook Hall. As always, it is my honor and my pleasure to be able to come on and share some tools with you that I know will assist you in becoming a better version of yourselves. Now, please excuse my voice today. I'm sounding a little heavier in the voice, and that's because a little more crackling in the voice, and that's because of allergies. This is I don't have seasonal allergies. I have like all year round allergies, but this is the end of our summer season and enter into our fall season, so I tend to experience a little bit more during this particular time of the year. But I dare not allow that to keep me from sharing with you today, to connecting with you today. It's very important to me, so I want to make sure that we're chatted. So today, I wanted to discuss something that is very personal to me in the fact of me having a lot of experience with it, unfortunately. And I wanted to share this because I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and they were talking about having this experience. It came in the middle of our conversation, and I ended up sharing with them a word that I felt would help them. But I wanted to talk about this topic today because I think sometimes we are told how to behave, how to act, how to respond, and what works for some might not work for others. So it's imperative that you know that it is a way to face this topic. There is a way to process this topic in what I would say a healthy way. But that takes experience, it takes time to do this. So the topic today we're going to talk about is grief. 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 And we're going to talk about this because at some point, everybody experiences grief at some point. Now, let me say this. It amazed me a couple of years ago when I was getting my master's degree. We were talking about the loss of, loved ones and grief. Hearing people who were much older than myself who had not experienced a personal grief. So they may have lost like a friend or maybe, a neighbor, but they had not, experienced personal grief like a parent or a sibling or a grandparent or something like that. And that shocked me. And it shocked me because I live in my little world where grief is something that I've been experiencing since I was, I want to say, 7th grade. So I'm very familiar. The first person that I lost that was very close to me was my paternal grandmother. And so from that point on, I had lost several family members, and I'm talking about close family members. So that's my reality. That's my world of knowing what it feels like to lose somebody that you grew up with, spent every day with, went on vacations with, talk with every day, shared secrets, private conversations, goals, dreams, highlight moments, sad moments, uh, just really close people. And then to have conversations with people who have no idea what that feel like, who has no uh, ability to process what I have dealt with was shocking to me. I remember, if I'm not sure, but I believe on this podcast before I shared with you that one of my professors, a psychology professor, actually stated, he felt like that was a lot. Like, wow, you have experienced a lot of loss, and to me, that was just my world, right? That's what I've dealt with since I stated seventh grade. So I am very familiar with this topic. Does it get easier? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Just because it has been a part of my world, just because it is what I've known, just because it's what I've experienced so much of, you never get numb to it. Well, not me. Not me. I've never gotten numb to it. I never said, oh well, no, never got numb to it. It still hurts when I lose someone that's close to me. It still stings. It still affects me. It still takes time for me to process. The difference is, I will say this, the difference is I'm very intentional about the way I process it. Very intentional about the way I process it. And I do that because the earlier times of my life of losing, for example, my father, which was the next hardest hit after my grandmother, um, it was something I had not understood. I was 22. I had just got married. I had just had a baby. My baby was maybe 4 months, three or 4 months. Wait a minute. My baby was 3 months. And I lost my dad. So, and mind you, I've shared this before, but the whole process of that time was so hard because I had just had a baby. I was having this severe pain, didn't know what was coming from, what was going on with my body right after having my baby. Everybody was telling me it's after birth pains, just to find out that it was gallbladder issues that I had no knowledge of, but found out, what was going on. So while I'm in the hospital getting, the work done, the scope done for that procedure, I found out my father passed away. He's in the hospital at the same time with me. We're literally in the same hospital. So he's like a couple of floors above me. And my brothers and my sister come down to tell me that he was gone. So I had to check out the hospital, take care of, the arrangements, the funeral, go back to the hospital, have my surgery. So that alone was a lot to deal with, not just adding the stress of losing this patriarch of my family, this very strong figure in my life, this mentor to me, absolutely my mentor. But I'm dealing with this with my own sickness and having a brand new baby. It was a lot. It was a lot, and I didn't give myself grace at that time. I didn't know. I didn't understand. I was only 22, and I really did not know how to handle what was happening. I did not understand what to do, how to process it at that particular time. So I'm talking about this because later on in life, by the time I got to my sister, which you all have heard so much about, and if I could, I would keep telling you about it. By the time I got to my sister, everybody felt like it would be the same old, like the normal thing that we do, which you put on this brave face, you be super strong, you just do what you're supposed to do, and then you go on with life. Well, I had, let me tell you, I had learned a lot from processing the grief of my father, which I did not do very well because I put on this fake facade of I'm okay. This facade of, life is back to normal, which it was never for me at that time. And I didn't process it correctly. I did not. For me, not for you, not for the next person, but for me, I did not process it properly for me to be okay. So I suffered greatly, suffered in silence a lot. And so by the time I got to my sister and she passed away, which was a shock, it was not something that we knew was happening. It happened. Boom. One day I'm at her house celebrating my daughter's birthday because my daughter wanted to take her cake to say happy birthday. I'm doing that 1 minute, and then the next, 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever, I'm getting a call stating you need to get over here. Something's wrong, and she was gone that day. So I knew between the time of my father, between the time of my sister, how to handle things differently. I knew then that what I put myself through with my father, putting on this face, this strong facade, giving the people what they wanted versus me processing and grieving in my way. I knew that I was not going to do that again. I had this very dear friend of mine, while everybody was, piling in my mother's house. We had literally just found out about the passing of my sister. We had literally just found this out. And a very dear friend of mine called me in the midst of us being at my mother's house. And she called me and she said, "This is what I want you to do. I want you to grieve. It's okay. It's okay." And that was something that I needed to hear because I knew that at that moment I was not going to be anything for anybody. I was not going to put on a show or put on a mask and not show my hurt or my pain. I had nothing to prove to anybody. Nothing. And I did not care. I did not care. What you can do, kudos for you. But I can only be who I am and do what I can do. And so I knew I was in pain. I knew I was hurting. Nobody, knew what I was feeling. They was processing things their own way. And I have nothing to say about how they process it. I can only control how I am processing it. So I decided to leave. That day from my mother's house. I couldn't stay any longer. I couldn't pretend. I couldn't, just laugh or giggle or talk or chat or reminisce. I wasn't in the mood for it. I literally just a couple of hours ago found out that my best friend was gone, and I had not yet processed that. And I was supposed to just pretend like none of this had happened and that I was okay. Absolutely not. So I decided to leave, and that was the best decision I made because I was able to go through a process that I did not afford myself to go through with my father. I allowed myself to grieve. And because I'm human. And I say this because a lot of times when you are in church, or specifically a first family in a church, which means, My father was a pastor, my mother was a pastor. So being a part of the first family, you're supposed to, you know, carry yourself a certain way, handle things a certain way, deal with things a certain way. And as much as I would have, loved to put on the fake face and pretend like, I was untouched and unbothered, that particular time I just couldn't do it. So I gathered myself and, I did do my part as far as going through all the process of picking the coffin and organizing the service and, making sure things were done properly. I did do that. But that day, the day that I found out, I had no interest in pretending, not even a little bit. And so I left to go heal. Her husband was a great asset. He helped fill in the void and the gap that I couldn't at that time. And that's the benefit of having a spouse, because they're fill-ins. They are you. You are them. So when I can't show up and when I can't be in 100, he's there, and vice versa. I show up for him and do for him when he can, and he do for me. And he stepped up and he filled in the void because he knew that his wife was incapable of doing it at that time. Back in the day, before I went through what I went through, I would have felt bad. I would have felt guilty about not being able to put on the fake face and doing what was expected of me. But the process that I had after my father and the pain that I had after my father, I learned very, very quickly that I have to live with me. In the end, I'm living with me. And so me putting on a fake facade, fake fakes for other people and giving them what they want did not benefit me whatsoever. I wasn't being genuine and truthful. I was in pain, and that's what I felt. So the next, after that, we've lost several. And in my core family, we lost my brother. So I think I've shared this before as well. By the time I got to that particular grieving time in my life, I had learned even more. I had learned even more because although I had allowed myself to grieve with my sister, there still was a lot of anger. We talked about that before. So by the time I got to my brother, the youngest brother, he's older than me, but the younger brother, I was in a different place. I was in a different place. God had dealt with me and prepared my heart for certain parts of that. So I was able to do my part and be there supportive to my mother. She needed it a lot at that time. So, the Lord gave me so much grace to be there for her. And my brother, my oldest brother, to be there for him. And they pretty much said it, like we were no good. We were no good, but you just, stepped up. That's because the grace of God and me working through the grief between my father, between my sister, and not being something that I didn't have to be. So by the time I got to my brother, the moment that I think I remember the most was just this hurt, and that's a part of the grieving process. It was just this hurt that I had. It was just hurtful. Very, very hurtful. I think every one of the people that I lost that was very close to me, I felt something different. I felt with my dad, I felt, very lost because this was my mentor. This was my dad, and I was a daddy's, baby. So it wasn't anything that he would have kept from me. Okay. So I was a daddy's, girl. And yeah, she used to call me baby girl. So that was just feeling lost, trying to find who I was at that time after he left. I identified a lot with my dad. And then with my sister, it was anger. It's anger. And I shared this last time. It was because of me knowing her and knowing what she wanted and what I felt like she deserved. And having to face life without her just seemed unfair to me. And with my brother, it was just hurt. It was a lot of hurt. And so, as I listened to the individual, I'm coming back around. As I listened to this individual that I had a conversation with yesterday, and they were saying how, they lost somebody. And I remember them saying, right after saying that, because they're Christian and they know I'm a Christian, they decided really quickly to say, the cliche words of, as life is, but at least they, I know they're in a better place, and all these things that we say, right, that we are taught to say, that we hear, so we repeat it and all that. And I think it's almost a way of us comforting ourselves or making sure that we're not sounding as if we're not believers, as if we're not Christians, as if we don't still hold up the values of Christianity, even in the middle of death or grief. But the reason I'm saying this, I'm not an expert on grief. I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist, or a therapist. Not licensed to tell you anything. I could only tell you by experience, right? My own process, my own grief. And I believe that we can help so many people by our testimonies, right? The Bible even talks to us about us sharing our testimonies and how impactful our testimonies are, how we can win over souls and people by our testimonies. So that's why I'm sharing this, because I don't want you to think that it makes you less of a believer in Christ or less of a Christian or taint your walk with Christ in any type of way if you grieve or if you're hurting. It is okay. It is okay to say, I am hurt. I am hurt. I remember people was asking me, and twice during certain moments of grief. Once specifically with my sister, and I believe again I was asked during my maternal grandmother's funeral, and someone asked me, "Are you gonna sing?" Because like the choir was getting together, the choir was singing and all this, and I said no, absolutely not. And with my sister, I clearly said, I don't feel like singing. I'm not there. I'm not there. Did that mean that I don't love God? Did that mean that I didn't trust God? Did that mean that I was ungrateful? Did that mean that I was, bitter and turned my back on God or my faith? Did that mean that I lost my faith? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I was and still to this day absolutely wholeheartedly love God with my whole heart. Whole heart. Love God with my whole heart. I would not ever, ever continue this walk without Christ. I don't see how people can do it because I can't. Okay. So I am a complete follower of Christ. I completely love God, and I would stand on a rooftop and scream it out to the world. I love God. It did not take that. But there is a time for everything, for you, for me. Other people can do it. People get up there and lose a loved one, and they can preach their eulogy. They can talk about it. I wasn't there. I can't do that. I was suffering. I was in pain. They can get up there and they can sing because you have a gift of singing. They would have loved to hear you sing. They heard me living when they was alive, hearing me singing. But this particular moment, I don't feel like singing. I don't feel like singing. I'm hurting over here. Did it mean that I didn't believe in the words that was sung that day? Absolutely not. I love them. The songs were beautiful. I worshiped, and my heart was poured out as the vocals were being lifted up unto God, and I enjoyed that part. But me, I was not ready. I was in a grieving moment. And I had to do what I needed to do at that time to be okay. And so this is what I'm saying. If it works for you, if you're that person who can get up, after losing a very close loved one, and you can do everything. I mean, you can sing, teach, preach, run, shout, scream, howl, whatever makes you feel okay. That is awesome. Great job. Good for you. But for those who find themselves in a different place and they cannot hear me very clearly. You're not the enemy. You're not the bad guy. There is nothing wrong with you. You will not be punished. You are in a grieving process, and it is normal. I'm gonna tell you something really quick. I didn't even plan to say this part, but my mother has preached so many sermons of those who she cared about, so many family members, so many friends that she cared about. She preached the sermons. I literally would look at her in awe, like, how can you do this? Like, how are you okay? And my mother would tell you now, to this day, um, now she feels it. Now she feel all that she did. My mama's 80 years old. She feels it now. She feels it. I know somebody who did that for a loved one as well. And later on dealt with so much stuff. And my words were, why did you do it? Why did you preach the eulogy? Why did you do that? And they felt like that's what the person would have wanted them to do. And my response was, what makes you think that? Why would you think? Did y'all have a previous conversation of, if anything ever happened to me, I want you to preach on you? No, you didn't. So why did you put yourself through that when you didn't have to put yourself through that? Because you're human, right? We're human. And we have to take care of our natural as well as our spiritual and our mental health. So you're assuming that that's something that they wanted you to do. And then afterwards, like I stated, they dealt with so much stuff afterwards. Now, speaking of my mother, did she regret what she did? No. Did she regret doing all the sermons and the eulogies? Absolutely not. She never regretted it. But she did feel the impact, and she learned. She learned from that. She learned that, you know what, I can't do that. Afterwards, it was like, you know what, I can't. She learned the limitations, which is something that I learned early. Early in life. I used to feel really bad about it. I felt like I wasn't strong enough. I felt that I was being very weak. I wasn't being a leader, whatever needed to be done. But, over time I realized, no, it's me being human. I'm grieving. I'm hurting. I'm in pain. I have to process that. I have to go through that, and if I don't, then I'll be causing more problems than good for myself. So my point is sharing all of my personal information and all of my deep moments I share this and be transparent because I know that someone is dealing and will deal with grief and will deal with it in a way that can be unhealthy. And so instead of you putting yourself in positions and doing things that are, not necessarily required, and then later on having to find yourself, living out of a bottle, okay? Consider the fact that you might need to sit this out. You might need to rely on those around you to help you and assist you and cover you and protect you while you're going through the most painful time of your life. That's what family is for. That's what loved ones are for. That's what the friends are for. They will be there to support you when you need it. As I stated, my husband, my children were there to support me during the most painful moments of my life and picked up the slack, picked up my inability to be present at that moment. And I learned that was okay. That was okay. Not only did he constantly emphasize it to me at that time, he was constantly telling me, hey babe, I'm gonna do for you what you can't do. You can't do it, and it's okay. And my background was fighting that. Like, you don't understand, like, it's expected of me to be, on point and do what I need to do, regardless of how I feel. And I was trying to push and press and push and press. And he was right. He was absolutely right. I needed to heal. I needed to be okay. I needed to grieve. My friend that called was right. You need to grieve, and it is okay. It is okay to grieve. It's okay to feel that loss. It's okay to come to terms that this is a change for you. And it's a difficult change for you because, once again, this is somebody that you have seen almost every day of your life, spoken to, of course, every day of your life, have shared the most personal and private moments, secrets shared between you two. Like, this is your person. Somebody, you get what I'm saying? You got your person, and they're now gone, right? So there are some losses that are different. Some losses, they sting, they hurt, they disturb you, they, you cry. But then there's losses that you just grieve. It really impacts your life because now you have to see your life without them in it. And I'm here to tell you, it is okay. It is okay. And you will be okay. There's so many moments that I've shared since the loss of specifically my sister, that I would say, man, I wish she was here. She would love to see this. She would have loved to have been here, especially the highlight moments of my children, when my son got married, or when my daughter, completed some musicals, and and was able to share her voice with her peers and her friends and her family and all that. It's just like, man, my sister would have loved this. She would have loved this. Or their graduations, all of my kids' graduations, my sister would have been right there, hugging and taking pictures. These things that I was thinking about, because we were raising my kids together, me and her, because she couldn't have any. I shared that before in this podcast. She couldn't have any. So my kids were her kids. And I'm like, man, she's missing this. The first time that I went to Daytona Beach, we go to Florida a lot, but I went to Daytona Beach. And I remember when I walked in the sand, I looked out and I was so grateful for what I was looking at. And I began to think about, like, man, I know my sister had never been there before, right? And I was like, man, she would have loved this. This would have been beautiful for her to see, And so just those little things, right? But that just shows that I keep her in my heart. Everywhere I go, she's going, like, I'm still thinking of my father. I'm thinking about the things that he taught me, the things that he, imprinted in me and poured into me, the mentor in him, and shared with me. And it comes out. It comes out, and I just go, wow. You know, he would be proud. The best moment of my life, driving to Loyola University on graduation day to get my master's for pastoral studies. And I remember driving down Lakeshore Drive with my husband, and I just started crying. And I was telling my husband, I was saying, my dad would be so proud. I'm doing this for him. He would be so proud because my father believed in education. My father believed in it. And my father would always tell me, I could do anything. You're so, you're smart. You can do anything. And he pushed me. He was the one who pushed me in front of the church first, to show me how to teach and to share the message of God. And so I was just so excited. I was like, he would have loved this. He would have celebrated this with me. He would have been so happy, for me with this. And I was just like, I'm doing this with you, Dad. I know he's here, with me. I was telling my husband, like, I just felt like, he knew about this and it's okay. Like, he's happy about this, And so those are the moments that I concentrate on now. Instead of, concentrating on the lost and that they're not physically with me anymore and their presence is gone from me and I can't pick up the phone and call them and share it or whatever, but I can look at the ocean and see God's goodness and say, man, my sister would have loved this, or I could put on my cap and gown and go to graduations and look out at Lakeshore Drive and go, wow, my dad would have loved this moment. And I know he's grateful, and I know he's happy for me and excited that I did this and I accomplished one of my goals. So you don't have to be anything for anybody when you're grieving. You don't have to put on a fake face. You don't have to put on a facade. You don't have to, do anything. But be true to yourself. Allow yourself the opportunity to grieve because then you're able to give yourself the opportunity to heal. Like I stated, there was a moment in my life that I couldn't talk about them without crying. I couldn't. It would literally, anywhere I was, and I would boo-hoo cry. And now if you see me crying, it's a different reason. It's being grateful that I had them, the time that I had them, being grateful for knowing that I was loved by them. They didn't hold back. They let me know and they showed love, right? And I loved them too. And some people can go through their whole life and not experience love. And I was loved by so many people, and they're no longer here. But while they were here, they poured into me so much love. And I'm a very grateful woman for that. And it shaped me, the process, the grieving process, the healing process, the learning process. It shaped me to be who I am today, to encourage somebody else, to lift somebody else and let them know it is okay. You will be okay. And years ago, somebody would have told me that, I would have thought they was just talking, had no idea what they were talking about. But trust me, you will be okay. Allow yourself to grieve. I'm going to give you the advice that was given to me. I'm going to give you that advice because it helped me. It literally changed how I process things, such as grief. And so I wanted to share that with you. Allow yourself to grieve and then allow yourself to heal. I am so excited and grateful that you gave me the opportunity today. I know this went a little longer than what we normally chat about, but this was a different type of topic. It's something that I try to be very intentional, very careful when I share it, because it's a very delicate and sensitive topic. But you will experience it at some point in your life, in some are harder than others due to the type of relationships. So some people are not, just realistically, some people are not very close to people. So they lose people and it doesn't affect them. But then some are extremely close to people, and it really changes them and it really hurts them. It really affects them. And unfortunately, they begin to deal with it in an unhealthy way, right? And so then they find themselves coping with that loss because they haven't allowed themselves to heal. They begin to cope themselves with the loss in unhealthy ways, such as, drugs and alcohol and all kind of things that are unhealthy to our bodies and to our minds. So because of that, I wanted to address that, and I wanted to make sure you know that you're not alone, that unfortunately there are many of us who have experienced loss, but I'm one that will tell you that it gets better, you get stronger, and there is a lesson to be learned. Recently, I'm going to close, but recently I made a post on social media, and if you're not following me on social media, look me up, Michelle Cook Hall, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and I even have a TikTok. So go ahead and follow me, and you get some of the same information on all those platforms. But the post that I made was something of lesson learned, wisdom gained. Lesson learned, wisdom gained. So you go through some things, but the point of you going through whatever you're going through is for your lesson to be learned. And then no matter how long or how painful it seems, in the end, the point is wisdom gained. If you're not getting any wisdom in that, then you are handling things incorrectly. Whatever we go through, whatever we experience, we're supposed to get something out of that. I'm not going through all this for nothing. Okay, I'm going to learn so that number one, I'm not repeating this again. And then number two, I'm going to be able to share and help with somebody else, because we are in the helping business. We are in the sharing business. This journey is hard enough for us, to not, what we should not be doing is being selfish and not sharing. But if I can share something with you that's going to help you and lift you up and put you in a place that is healthy and strong, then you in return will pay it forward and do it with somebody else. So that's the ultimate goal, is that we sharing is caring. If I can help you, then you're going to help the next person, and then you're going to help the next person, and so on, so on, so on. And so that's what we do. We're not going to keep this information or these experiences or these lessons to ourselves. We're going to share these lessons because somebody needs to hear it. You might be thinking, nobody needs to know this. Nobody, cares about what I've gone through or what I've experienced or how I had to battle this addiction or this, this domestic violence, issue. Nobody cares. Wrong. Somebody do care, and they can learn from it. So whatever you get through, and it's a lesson in that, you're going to gain wisdom from that, and then you're able to share with somebody else. God bless you all so much. I love you. Please don't forget that. But most importantly, God loves you more. I want you to be intentional about having a great and outstanding day. God bless.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe. Please remember to check out Michelle's bestsellers Faith vs. Fear and Breaking Family Ties. Available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Have a great day, and thank you for listening to Renewed Mind Revolution Podcast.